didn't forget his name. It was taken, and in its place were names that didn't belong to him. This is the story of a man who dreamed the lives of strangers until one of them woke up in his skin. Memory is not a record, it is a ritual, and rituals are meant to be broken. He first noticed it when the date stopped making sense. Nathaniel Royce, a reclusive clerk from Grey Hollow, was not a man prone to dreams or fancies. His life was one of ink and ledgers, of brass locks and measured days. He lived above an apothecary no one entered. The dust on the window ledges was undisturbed, and the candle beside his bed burned down every night with mechanical precision. But then he began waking up, elsewhere, not in location, but in mind. One night he sat bolt upright in bed and reached instinctively for a pocket watch he had never owned. The next, he woke humming a lullaby in a language he did not speak. By the end of the week, he had written an entire letter to someone named Marietta in French, folded and sealed with wax, addressed to an estate in Versailles. He did not know a Marietta. He had never left Grey Hollow. The worst part wasn't the dreams, it was the diary. Each morning, his journal contained pages he hadn't written, descriptions of unfamiliar rooms, accounts of strangers' grief, names he didn't recognize repeated in his own hand. Lachlan, Marietta, Elias, whole lives sketched in ink, a fisherman lost at sea, a poet in a sanatorium, a midwife who vanished during a lunar eclipse. He tore the pages out. They returned the next day, rewritten. At first, Nathaniel believed he was ill, perhaps delirious. He visited the nearest physician who prescribed rest and nothing more. He took to sleeping with the windows open. Fresh air, he reasoned, might cleanse the mind. It only made the dreams more vivid. He watched his hands perform surgeries he had never studied. He smelled the fire of a home he'd never seen burning. He saw a reflection blink before he did. Then one night, he lit a candle to steady himself, and the page he had just torn from the journal curled inward, not from flame, but from heatless breath. The ink lifted off the page and rearranged itself before his eyes. The candle flickered, the air felt thick, and the page read, "This is not your life, but it is your burden." He brought the journal to a parish priest. Father Aiken held it for less than a minute before his hands began to shake. He claimed the handwriting resembled something ancient, a script he had seen only once, in the margins of a scorched Bible that had been sealed in the church's reliquary. "I wouldn't read it again," the priest whispered. "It remembers too much." Nathaniel tried to rid himself of it. He buried the journal beneath the floorboards. He returned home from a walk to find it resting neatly on his pillow. He tossed it into the river. It was in his coat pocket the next morning. He burned it. The following night it returned to his desk, the cover unscorched, the edges damp with soot. And then came the mirror. He had long ago stopped looking into it, but that morning he caught himself mid-glance and froze. The reflection did not match the position of his head. It blinked too slowly, and it did not stop smiling when he turned away. That same evening, the journal revealed a new entry, written not in his hand, but in one so jagged it looked torn from bone. It read, "You are not the first to forget your name. He wore yours for a time, as you now wear his. Names are garments here. The Chronicle does not discard them. It folds them into new cloth." He shut the book, but when he turned away, the pages flipped open of their own accord, and a second hand appeared in the mirror beside his shoulder. He was alone. The next 3 days unravelled in silence. He stopped eating. He stopped lighting the candle. And yet the pages multiplied, each one now signed at the bottom in unfamiliar names. E. Lachlan. M. He awoke with dirt under his fingernails and ink on his tongue. Once he found a note in his coat he hadn't written, addressed to the next keeper. It was signed in a spidery scrawl, Elias. On the 29th day, Nathaniel opened the journal and found no words. Only a glyph, circular, like a seal. It pulsed faintly in the candlelight, like a heartbeat. And then, in a slow curl of smoke, one line etched itself beneath it. The book does not choose lightly, but it always chooses. He rose from his chair, walked to the mirror, and saw not a reflection, but a room, a different one. Stone walls, a lectern, shelves of journals identical to his own, and standing behind the glass, not himself, but a man draped in black, his hands ink-stained, watching. The man mouthed something. Nathaniel couldn't hear it, until the journal began to whisper. He was no longer Nathaniel. He had not been for some time. He was simply the next entry. And somewhere, far deeper in the pages, a voice smiled behind a whisper. Memory is not a record, it is a ritual, and rituals must be repeated. Some keepers forget who they were, some forget they were ever chosen at all. But the book remembers, always. Entry 3 is complete. The margin grows louder, and someone else is already forgetting. You've read the entry, but the chronicle does not close so easily. Subscribe if you wish to stay remembered, and return next week before your name begins to fade.